Welcome back to our top story of the day. Victim of the San Bernardino terrorist attack will file a legal brief in support of the FBI's attempt to force Apple to unlock the encrypted phone. The Los Angeles U.S. Attorney's Office and San Bernardino District Attorney asked former U.S. District Court Judge Stephen Larson, now in private practice, to represent the interests of the victims in the Apple litigation. He joins us right now from Los Angeles. Stephen, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Now,
Thanks.
we've been having a very rich debate on the set in terms of the pros and cons of Apple coming up with the software to hack into this phone. And you know the issues, sir, that this is a slippery slope. Make the case on behalf of the victims.
Well, I heard the debate earlier, and there's a lot of hyperbole and exaggeration going on. It's not a slippery slope, but at the same time, we need to be careful. In this particular case, there is no question in my mind that the government is warranted in seeking the relief from Apple. They need access to the cell phone. The victims deserve access to the cell phone, or to have the government obtain that information. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. This is the biggest terrorist act that we've had in decades. At the same time, I'm hoping that this is going to propel the type of debate that we're seeing here and that needs to play out in Congress. We need legislation to adapt and adopt procedures and protocol to deal with this changing technology. This is a healthy debate to have, but in this case, Apple must comply with the court order.
Joe Tacopina, what do you say to that?
Stephen, I agree with you, and what you said was you repeatedly said we need access to this cell phone. And there's not a person alive with a brain, I don't think, that could argue that the victims or law enforcement in general shouldn't have access to that cell phone. That cell phone belonged to a person who is now deceased. There's no privacy rights going on.
And it was issued by the county.
And it was issued by the county, so there's no standing issues there. They should have, your clients should have access to that cell phone. What I understand, and again, you read, quotes from Tim Cook and you read quotes from the Justice Department, and they seem like we're talking about two different planets here. But what I understand is it's not, according to Apple anyway, this case is much more than a single phone or single investigation. But what's at stake is data security for hundreds and thousands of law-abiding citizens who would eventually have their ability to have their data protected compromised. What Apple is being asked to do is being forced to enable a hacking program that could compromise users' privacies. And I think that's the bigger issue.
Yeah.
If there's a way to get into this cell phone without creating this software that's going to be out there and created and can't just disappear,
what about
I think that's a great issue.
What about that, Stephen?
There's no question the software should not be out there. There needs to be prophylactic procedures put in place by Apple, working with the government to make sure that does not happen. But that is certainly possible. I think there's a lot of doomsaying going on here that's really not warranted. We have had these types of measures in other contexts to control technology, to give the government access to technology when they needed it. We've been doing this with wiretapping.
If they create a software to hack into one phone, the software is out there. The bad guys can get access to that.
That's always going to be a risk. I mean, when we go back to the 1960s, when we started having wiretapping, of course, the illegal wiretapping that took place can happen. There's always going to be bad guys out there doing bad things. That does not mean that we paralyze law enforcement.
But
we need to be able to get the information that we need.
But I think we're also jeopardizing our safety. I think forget about the privacy issues and the civil liberty issues and all that stuff. I understand people's concern for terrorism and safety are more important, but I think we're jeopardizing our safety if we put this software out there.
We're not putting anything out there. Privacy concerns are important, and they need to be balanced with our national security and law enforcement interests. And that is what is happening in this case. A federal judge is very carefully considering this. This will be fully vetted in the courts. No one's giving away technology. No one's doing anything which is going to endanger anybody. We're being very careful, and we need to be careful. And this needs to lead to legislation. Congress needs to take up this issue as well. But let's not use this. Apple should not be using this as a platform for trying to stop a very legitimate law enforcement investigation.
Got it. Stephen, thank you so much for your insights. Stephen Larson, and our condolences to families. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.